An ER surgery case made me late to my wedding. 20-plus in-laws yelled, "Get out, he married another!" But the morning of my wedding started the way my mornings usually start. Quiet, organized, and already behind schedule for someone else's expectations. I woke at 4:45 a.m. without an alarm. I lay still for a minute, listening to the old ceiling fan in my apartment clicking like it always did when it warmed up. I checked my phone out of habit. 3 missed calls from an unknown number, 1 voicemail, and a string of messages from Marla. Marla, 6:02 a.m. Reminder, photos start at 10. Don't be late. His mom is already stressed. Marla was my fiancé Ethan's cousin and unofficial family coordinator. She didn't mean harm in her own mind, she meant control. She always said things like, "His mom is stressed," as if that should rearrange the universe. I sat up and reached for the garment bag hanging on my closet door. Inside was the dress I'd paid for myself. Simple satin, no lace, no beads. I'd chosen it because I didn't want to feel like I was wearing a costume. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring and set it down. At 5:30 a.m., I drove to St. Anne's Medical Center while the city was still dim and half asleep. My shift wasn't supposed to start until 7. I was on the schedule as an on-call surgical PA for weekends, but this Saturday was supposed to be different. I'd requested the day off 4 months earlier. It was approved in writing. I'd printed the email and filed it in a folder because hospital scheduling has a way of getting misplaced. It was my wedding day. I was supposed to have nothing in my hands except a bouquet, but medicine doesn't care about weddings. At 6:11 a.m., I pulled into the employee lot and sat in my car for a moment before getting out. I didn't feel dramatic. I felt practical. There's a certain kind of calm you develop in the ER, not the kind that comes from not feeling anything, but the kind that comes from knowing a reaction won't help. I walked in through the staff entrance, badge flashing green, and the smell of disinfectant hit me like it always did. A security guard I'd seen 100 times nodded at me without looking up. Inside the locker room, I switched into scrubs and tied my hair back into a tight knot. I checked my phone again. 2 more calls from the unknown number. Another text from Marla. Marla, 6:19 a.m. Ethan's mom asked me to make sure you're not overdoing it today. Remember, you're joining the family now. I stared at that line longer than I should have. Joining the family. It was the phrase they used when they wanted to remind me who had the leverage. Like marriage was a membership card they were granting me. Like it wasn't also me choosing Ethan. Ethan wasn't like them. Not exactly. He'd grown up inside their loud orbit and learned to keep the peace by staying agreeable. He was warm and steady when it was just us. But around his family, his spine softened. He'd call it compromise. Sometimes compromise looks a lot like surrender. I slid my phone into my locker and walked toward the ER. The charge nurse, Denise, caught me right away. Her eyes were sharp, like always. "Grace," she said, "thank God. They told me you weren't coming." "Who told you that?" She shrugged. "Admin." "But we've got a mess." Multi-car pileup on I-94.
2 inbound.
1 is unstable. Trauma is already tied up in OR2. I didn't ask why admin said I wasn't coming. I didn't ask why my approved day off had apparently evaporated. I simply nodded. "Where do you need me?" Denise exhaled like she'd been holding it. Bay 3. "They're prepping." I walked fast but didn't run. Running makes people panic. Panic spreads. Bay 3 was already loud. Monitors, voices, metal instruments being set on trays. A paramedic gave report while pushing a gurney. Female, mid-30s. Restrained driver. Abdominal distension. Hypotensive in the field. BP dropping. Possible internal bleeding. She looked gray. Not the kind of pale you can fix with a blanket. The kind that signals blood is leaving places it needs to stay. The attending surgeon, Dr. Patel, stepped in beside me. He didn't waste words. "Grace, I need you in OR1.
Trauma team is in a thoracotomy. You're my extra set of hands."
"Yes, doctor." I scrubbed in, gloved up, and stepped into OR1 as the anesthesiologist intubated. The room took on that focused hush that happens when everyone knows a clock is ticking. I glanced once at the wall clock above the cabinets. 6:47 a.m. My wedding hair appointment was at 8 o'clock. I didn't think about it. Thinking about it wouldn't stop the bleeding. The patient's abdomen opened and the problem announced itself immediately, blood pooling where it didn't belong. Dr. Abdom, Patel moved with clipped precision. I followed him like a shadow, suctioning, retracting, passing clamps, keeping the field visible. At 7:32 a.m., we located a splenic laceration and a torn mesenteric vessel. Dr. Patel called for blood products, and I relayed orders without raising my voice. At 8:05 a.m., my phone was vibrating in my locker down the hall. I didn't know that yet, but I could picture it anyway. Marla's messages stacking like bricks. Ethan's mother, Lorraine, escalating from passive reminders to sharp comments to theatrical worry. Lorraine liked theatrics. She'd been planning the wedding like it was a performance for her circle. She cared more about the seating chart than the vows. When I'd suggested a smaller guest list, she'd laughed like I'd told a joke. "Oh, honey," she'd said, smiling too wide. "This is a family wedding."
We don't do small family wedding.
Meaning their family. The moment I met Lorraine, she'd scanned me the way some people scan a menu, evaluating what I could offer, what I might cost, what could be improved. "You're quiet," she'd said at brunch, as if it was an issue to correct. "I'm comfortable," I'd replied. She'd laughed again like it wasn't an answer. Over the months, she'd developed a habit of making comments disguised as concern. "Grace, you don't wear much makeup. Ethan likes a woman who looks polished. Grace, you work so much. I hope you'll have time to be a wife. Grace, your family seems simple. That's refreshing." I never argued. I corrected facts when necessary, and otherwise I let silence do what arguing never could. Reveal people. Ethan would squeeze my hand after and say, "She's just old school. Don't take it personally." It was always personal. He just didn't know what to do with it. In the OR, Dr. Patel's voice cut through my thoughts. "Suction." "There." I shifted, cleared the field, watched his hands move. The patient's vitals stabilized, then dipped again. We worked faster, still controlled. At 9:12 a.m., the bleeding slowed. At 9:26, we closed. I stepped back as the team finished dressings and anesthesia began waking the patient. I peeled off gloves, washed my hands, and looked at the wall clock again. 9:31 a.m., the ceremony was at 2 p.m. There was still time, but not much buffer. Not with hair, makeup, getting dressed, photos, travel to the venue. Lorraine had built a schedule like a military operation. I walked out of OR 1 with that deep, post-surgery steadiness in my body. My scrubs were clean, but my mind wasn't quiet. Denise caught me again in the hallway. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. She studied me. "You sure? You look like you're calculating something." "I am," I said simply. "Where's Dr. Patel?" "Post-op debrief." "Why?" "I need documentation that I was here."
Denise, blink!
For what? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I'd learned that explanations invite opinions. Opinions invite delay. "I requested today off," I said. "It was approved." Denise's expression tightened. "Admin pulled you back in?" I nodded once. She let out a low whistle.
On your wedding day?
I didn't correct her tone. "I need the case log and the on-call notice." Denise looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "I'll print it. And I'll have security pull the timestamp of you entering staff entrance if you want." "Yes," I said. "Please." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You expecting trouble?" I thought of Lorraine's smile, her habit of framing everything as my failure. The way she'd already been telling people the wedding was her gift to Ethan. I thought of Marla's message about joining the family, and I thought of the unknown number calling me since dawn. "I don't expect trouble," I said. "I prepare for it." Denise gave me a tight, approving nod and walked toward the nurse's station. I headed to my locker, already feeling my phone buzzing through the metal door like it was alive. When I opened it, the screen lit up with a flood of notifications. Marla, 8:03 a.m. Where are you? Marla, 8:17 a.m. Lorraine is asking if you're having second thoughts. Marla, 8:26 a.m. Everyone is waiting for the bride's photos. This is embarrassing. Ethan, 8:41 a.m. Call me when you can. Mom is upset. Don't come, he's already married. Don't come, he's already married. Unknown number 9:07 a.m. They'll throw you out anyway. Save yourself. My thumb hovered over the unknown number. My first instinct was not panic. It was pattern recognition. Unknown number. Multiple calls. A specific language, not a random prank. I took a slow breath, then did what I always did when something fell off. I didn't reply. I took screenshots, every message. Then I opened my voicemail. The unknown number had left one message. I pressed play. A woman's voice came through, slightly distorted like she was speaking too close to the mic. She sounded breathless, not emotional, just urgent. Grace, I don't have time. They're setting you up. Ethan didn't tell you everything. His family! Lorraine, this isn't the first time. I'm sorry. Please don't walk in there blind. The voicemail ended. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. My hands were steady. My breathing stayed even. But something in the shape of the day changed. Like a door I hadn't known existed had just opened. I didn't know who the woman was. I didn't know what she meant by "isn't the first time," but I knew this. Someone was trying to control the narrative before I even arrived, and that meant there was already a narrative waiting for me. I put my phone down gently, like it could break. Then I pulled my calendar folder out of my locker, my printed approvals, my copies, the things I saved because I'd learned not to rely on anyone else's memory. I wasn't going to fight anyone. I was going to show up with facts. In the mirror above the sink, my face looked the same as it had an hour ago. Calm, focused. The expression that makes loud people underestimate you. I changed out of scrubs, washed my hands again, and walked out of the hospital holding a slim envelope Denise had just handed me. Case log, timestamps, and a signed note confirming my presence in surgery from 6:50 a.m. to 9:28 a.m. Outside, the sky was brighter now. Morning traffic had started. People were out living ordinary Saturday lives. I sat in my car, put the envelope in my passenger seat, and called Ethan. He answered on the second ring, voice tight. "Grace, where are you? Everyone's asking." "I'm leaving the hospital," I said. There was a pause. "The hospital? I had an emergency surgery case."
Another pause. He exhaled hard.
"My mom is furious. She's telling people you didn't care enough to show up on time." "I have documentation," I said. "Grace, this is my wedding too." "I know," I said evenly. "Listen carefully. Did you give anyone my new number?" Silence. Then, "What?" "No." "Why?" "I'm getting messages," I said, "from someone who knows your family." "What messages?" I looked at the venue address pinned in my GPS. I didn't move the car yet. I didn't want to talk while driving. I wanted each word to land clean. "Someone told me not to come," I said. "They said you're already married." Ethan let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because he didn't know what else to do. "That's insane." "It might be," I said, "or it might be a warning." "Grace, please," he said, voice shifting into that tone he used when his family got loud, appeasing, smoothing. "Don't start. Today is already a mess." I didn't correct him. I didn't argue that I wasn't starting anything. I just said, "I'll be there as soon as I can." "Okay," he said quickly, relief flooding his voice. "Just come. We'll handle everything when you get here." When I ended the call, I didn't drive immediately. I opened a new note on my phone and typed a heading. W. Wedding Day Timeline, January 6th. Then I wrote, 4:45 a.m. woke up, 6:11 a.m. arrived, St. Carver's, Ann's employee lot, 6:59:28, surgery in OR1, Dr. Patel. 9:31 a.m. left OR1 O-Note voicemail received. 9:36 screenshots saved. 9:44 called Ethan. I attached the screenshots into a folder. I saved the voicemail. I backed them up to cloud storage. Then I finally started the car. As I pulled out of the lot, my phone lit up again. A new message from the unknown number. Unknown number, 9:58 a.m. They're going to say you're not the bride, and they already have someone in your dress. I didn't slam the brakes. I didn't gasp. I kept driving, steady, hands on the wheel. Lorraine had insisted on approving every detail. She'd asked for photos of the dress, for coordination. I'd sent her one picture, cropped at the shoulders. She'd complained it wasn't enough. "You're so private," she'd said lightly. "It makes people wonder." I changed quickly. Jeans, a soft sweater, flats. I left the dress where it was. If there was a scene waiting for me, I didn't need to arrive costumed for it. Before leaving, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into my email and searched Ethan's name. There were the usual threads: wedding vendors, venue confirmations, family group messages where Lorraine spoke for everyone. Nothing new at first glance. Then I searched Lorraine's name. That's when things shifted. 2 months earlier, there was an email I hadn't opened because it hadn't been addressed to me, just forwarded in a long chain about guest counts. The subject line read, "Re-contingency plan." I clicked it. The email wasn't written by Lorraine. It was written by Marla. "Aunt Elle, I've spoken to her. She's available and understands the optics. Hair and makeup are already aligned. If Grace causes a delay or doesn't show, we won't have an empty altar." My eyes moved slowly down the screen. Lorraine's reply came minutes later. "Good. This family does not get embarrassed. Ethan deserves better than chaos." I didn't scroll immediately. I didn't react. I took a screenshot. Then I scrolled. Marla again. "We'll need to control the entrance. If Grace shows up late, we'll frame it as confusion. People will side with what they see." I closed my laptop. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I'd found my first solid receipt. This wasn't panic management. It was premeditation. Someone had been designated as a replacement. Not metaphorically, logistically. Hair, makeup, optics. I reopened the laptop and checked the email headers. The thread had been forwarded to Ethan at some point. I checked the timestamps he'd received it. Whether he'd read it was another question, but it had been delivered to his inbox weeks before today. I copied the entire thread, saved it as a PDF, and uploaded it to the same cloud folder as the screenshots and voicemail. Then I did something else I'd learned to do in my line of work. I created a timeline. Not emotional, not interpretive, just dates, times, actions. November 3rd. Lorraine requests photo of dress November 4th. I send cropped photo of dress November 4th. I send cropped photo November 10th. Lorraine asks Marla to handle contingencies. Email. Marla message about punctuality January 6th, 8:52 to 9:58 a.m. Unknown number texts warnings patterns don't lie. People do. At 10:47 a.m. my phone rang again. Unknown number. This time I answered. "Grace?" the woman said. Her voice matched the voicemail exactly. "Yes, you're calm. I need information," I said. "You can give it or you can hang up. Either way, I won't argue." Another pause, then a quiet breath. "My name is Hannah," she said. "I was engaged to Ethan 3 years ago. I didn't interrupt. I met his family before I met most of his friends," she continued. "I didn't fit anymore. I asked questions." "What happened?" I asked. "They replaced me," she said simply. "Not at the altar. Earlier, they convinced Ethan I was unstable, that I'd embarrass him. They lined up someone else while we were working on things." I glanced at the email thread again. "They told everyone I left," Hannah said. "They controlled the story before I could even speak." "Did Ethan know?" I asked. "I don't know what he knew," she said. "I know what he allowed. That distinction mattered. I was invited to your wedding as a friend of the family," Hannah went on. "When I realized why, I backed out. I didn't know they'd go this far. When I heard you were late, I knew exactly what they were doing." "Do you have proof?" I asked. She gave a short, humorless laugh. "I've had 3 years to collect it." At 11:12 a.m., an email hit my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "You deserve the truth." Inside were attachments, screenshots of texts from Lorraine to Hannah.
Messages about presentation, about knowing your place.
About how quiet girls are easier until they forget themselves. There were photos too. Not intimate, just staged. Hannah standing beside Ethan at family events, then suddenly replaced in later photos by another woman Lorraine favored, briefly before that arrangement fell apart. And there was one more thing, a scanned document, a venue amendment dated 2 weeks earlier. Alternate bride name listed under emergency substitution. I leaned back in my chair. This wasn't about me being late. This was about control. At 11:29 a.m., Ethan called again. "Grace, where are you?" he asked. His voice was strained now. "People are asking questions." "I'm aware," I said. "Mom says you're not answering because you're embarrassed." "I'm not embarrassed," I said. "I'm documenting." There was a pause. "Documenting what? Did you read the email Marla sent your mother about a contingency plan?" Silence. Then, "What contingency plan?" "I didn't push. I didn't accuse. I forwarded it to you just now, I said, along with some attachments. I could hear him swallowing. This is insane, he said finally. They wouldn't. They already did, I said. I'm asking you one question. Are you going to stand beside me when I walk in? Or are you going to let them decide who belongs there? His breath came faster.
Grace, can we not do this right now? Everyone's watching.
That was his answer. I ended the call. At 11:46 a.m., Marla texted again. Marla, please don't make a scene. Lorraine is trying to protect Ethan.
Protect him from what? From a woman who wouldn't disappear quietly.
At noon, I left my apartment and drove toward the venue. I didn't wear the dress. I carried the envelope from the hospital, my laptop bag, and my phone. The venue was a restored estate outside the city. White columns, wide lawn, valet service. Lorraine's choice. She liked places that looked impressive in photos. As I pulled in, I saw guests already milling about, dressed, smiling, unaware of the scaffolding behind the event. Near the entrance, I saw her, a woman my height, dark hair pinned up, ivory satin visible beneath a robe. Not my dress exactly, but close enough. Lorraine stood beside her, hand on her elbow, smiling like a director watching an understudy hit her marks. I parked the car. I checked the time, 12:14 p.m. I wasn't late anymore. I was right on time for the part they hadn't planned for. I stepped out of the car, adjusted the strap of my bag on my shoulder, and walked toward the entrance without hesitation. No one stopped me yet. But I could feel eyes starting to track me. Inside my bag were documents, timelines, screenshots, and a truth that had been waiting for the right room. And judging by the number of guests already gathering, that room was almost full. The first person to notice me wasn't Lorraine. It was a woman I didn't recognize, standing near the valet desk, clutching a champagne flute like it was an anchor. Her eyes moved from my face to my clothes, then back again, confusion tightening her mouth. She didn't say anything. She just looked past me, toward the entrance, where the other woman, the other bride, was being ushered inside by Marla. Confusion spreads faster than confrontation. I let it. I walked through the main doors without slowing. The venue smelled like fresh flowers and citrus polish. String music floated from somewhere deeper inside. Everything looked exactly like Lorraine's vision board. Near the entrance, a large sign read, "Welcome to the wedding of Ethan and Elle." The last name was printed in elegant script, mine. I stopped for a moment and read it carefully. Then I took a photo. Wide angle. Timestamp visible. Location metadata on. Receipts don't have to be dramatic. They just have to exist. Marla spotted me then. Her smile didn't disappear. It froze. She stepped toward me quickly, heels clicking too fast for someone trying to look composed. "Grace," she said, lowering her voice, "you shouldn't be here right now." I met her eyes. "Interesting," I said calmly, considering my name is on the sign. She glanced around, aware of the people within earshot. "There's been a mix-up." "We're handling it." "Who is we?" I asked. She didn't answer that. Instead, she reached for my arm, not roughly, but with the casual entitlement of someone used to moving people out of the way. I stepped back before she touched me. Her smile tightened. "Lorraine asked me to intercept you." "I assumed," I said. "Grace," she continued, still smiling, still controlled, "you're clearly overwhelmed. Maybe you should sit down somewhere private." I looked past her. Ethan was standing near the bar, surrounded by groomsmen, his posture stiff. He hadn't seen me yet. Or maybe he had, and he was pretending not to. "I'm not overwhelmed," I said. "I'm observant."
Marla's jaw clenched. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be."
I nodded once. "I won't." That confused her more than anger would have. I walked past her into the main hall. Conversation softened as I passed. Not stopped, just dipped, like a tide pulling back. People looked at me, then toward the front of the room where Lorraine stood near the altar area, directing florists with precise gestures. She was in her element. The other woman, young, nervous, carefully styled, stood a few feet away, clutching her bouquet too tightly. She kept glancing at Lorraine, then at the guests, then at the floor. She looked like someone who'd been told to trust the process. Lorraine turned and saw me. For half a second, her face did something honest. Then the mask slid back into place. She walked toward me with measured steps, arms slightly open, like this was a reunion she'd rehearsed. "Grace," she said warmly, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "you made it." "Yes," I said. "I did." She laughed lightly. "We were worried." Everyone was waiting. "I'm aware," I said. Her eyes flicked to my clothes. "You're not dressed." "No," I agreed. A few people nearby pretended not to listen while absolutely listening. Lorraine lowered her voice. "This is not the time." "It's exactly the time," I said. "You just didn't expect me to arrive informed." Her smile thinned. "I don't know what you think you know, but I think," I said gently, "that you planned for me not to be here." The air between us shifted. She straightened slightly. "And so, that's an unkind thing to say." "It's also documented," I replied. Her eyes flicked, just once, to the laptop bag on my shoulder. "Grace," she said, switching tactics, "you've had a long morning. Let's talk later." After the ceremony, I shook my head. "There won't be a ceremony like this." That landed. Behind her, a few heads turned fully now. The string music faltered, then stopped. Lorraine's voice dropped. "You are being emotional." I smiled faintly. "I'm being precise." I stepped past her and walked toward Ethan. He saw me then. Really saw me. His face drained of color. "Grace," he said, stepping forward. "Thank God. Can we talk somewhere private?" "Later," I said. "Right now, I need to understand something." He glanced nervously towards his mother. "This isn't the place." "It is," I said. "Because this is where the decisions you didn't question are playing out." He swallowed. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my bag but didn't pull anything out yet. "Do you recognize the name Hannah?" I asked. His eyes widened, just slightly. That was enough. Behind us, Lorraine moved quickly. "This is inappropriate," she said sharply. "Grace, you are disrupting a family event." I turned to face her. "You invited an alternate bride to my wedding." A collective intake of breath rippled through the room. "That's absurd," Lorraine said immediately. "Everyone here can see you're confused." I looked around. People were no longer pretending. "I have emails," I said calmly. "Venue amendments, text messages, screenshots, and a timeline. I also have hospital documentation proving why I arrived when I did." I held up the envelope from St. Anne's. The hospital logo was unmistakable. "I was in emergency surgery this morning," I continued. "A trauma case that began at 6:50 a.m. and ended at 9:28 a.m. I can name every person in the room if needed." Lorraine scoffed. "That doesn't explain this spectacle." "It explains why you thought you could replace me," I said. "You assumed I wouldn't show up in time to contradict you." Ethan's voice was barely audible. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Lorraine turned on him.
"She's spiraling! This is exactly what I warned you about!"
I watched him then. Watched the conflict play across his face.
Habit versus reality. Comfort versus truth. I didn't rush him. I turned instead toward the guests. "I'm not here to argue," I said. "I'm here to clarify." I set my laptop bag down on a nearby table and opened it. The room was silent now. I didn't project my voice. I didn't need to. "I was approved for today 4 months ago," I continued. "That approval was overridden without my consent." I was called into emergency surgery. While I was operating, messages were sent suggesting I was irresponsible, unreliable, and absent by choice. I paused, then added. Simultaneously, a contingency plan was activated. I clicked my laptop open but didn't turn the screen yet. I grabbed it. Lorraine's face had gone rigid. The other woman, the one in the robe, looked like she might be sick.
"I was warned," I said, "by someone who has lived through this family's version of damage control."
I turned slightly, making sure the woman could see me. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said to her.
But you were misled. Her eyes filled with tears.
Ethan took a step toward me. "Grace, please, let's stop." I met his gaze. "You had an email about this weeks ago. Did you read it?" He didn't answer. I nodded. "That's okay. The answer is in the timestamps." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I'm going to show you all something, I said. Not because I want to embarrass anyone, but because truth doesn't need permission. I turned the screen outward. Before I could tap the first file, Lorraine's voice cut through the room. If you do this, she said, no warmth left now, you will not be welcome in this family. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, I know, and I tapped the screen. The first email thread appeared, enlarged and mirrored on the venue's presentation monitor, still connected from the earlier slideshow rehearsal. Marla gasped, Ethan stared, and the room leaned forward as one. I didn't speak again. I let the words on the screen begin to do what they were always meant to do. And just before the full weight of them landed, before the whispers turned into understanding, before the story Lorraine had written began to collapse, I stopped, because the next thing that happened was going to change more than just a wedding, and it deserved a moment of silence first. I stood there while the email thread sat on the screen behind me, unmoving. I didn't scroll yet. Silence has weight when people are forced to read. Marla's message was the first thing visible. Her words were neat, polite, unmistakable. If grace causes a delay or doesn't show, we won't have an empty altar. Someone near the back let out a short, involuntary sound. Not outrage, recognition. I waited. Lorraine took a step toward the monitor. This is taken out of context, she said sharply. Anyone can misinterpret. I raised one hand. Not to silence her, just to signal that I wasn't done. I scrolled. Lorraine's reply appeared. This family does not get embarrassed. The word family hung in the air like a justification that had been overused. I scrolled again. The venue amendment filled the screen next. The estate's letterhead was unmistakable, dated. Signed, Emergency Substitution. Bride. A murmur moved through the guests now, no longer confused, no longer restrained. The other woman, still in her robe, covered her mouth with one hand. She took a step back, as if distance might undo what she'd just read. I didn't know, she whispered, not to anyone in particular.
Just out loud. I turned to her.
I believe you. Lorraine spun toward me. You are destroying something beautiful. No, I said. I'm preventing a lie from becoming permanent. Ethan finally spoke. His voice was hoarse. Mom, tell me this isn't real. She looked at him, truly looked, and something cold passed between them. I did what I had to do, she said. You were too passive to protect yourself. From what? He asked. From humiliation, she snapped. From a woman who puts work before family. From someone who can't even show up on time to her own wedding. I reached into my bag again and pulled out the envelope. This, I said, holding it up, is my surgical case log, time-stamped, signed, verified. I placed it on the table beneath the monitor. At 6:50 this morning, I assisted in an emergency trauma surgery. A woman with internal bleeding from a car accident. She survived. I didn't look at Lorraine when I said it, I looked at the guests. I didn't choose to be late, I continued, but someone else chose to make that lateness useful. The room was very quiet now. Ethan's shoulders sagged, like something he'd been holding up for years had finally been removed. He looked at me. You were supposed to trust us.
I trusted you, I said. I didn't trust your silence.
Marla spoke then, her voice small for the first time. Aunt Lorraine just wanted options. I nodded. That's what you tell yourselves when you don't want to say replacement. The officiant quietly closed his binder. One of the venue staff stepped back from the altar, eyes wide, as if realizing she was standing in the wrong story. Lorraine's composure finally cracked. She laughed once, sharp, brittle. Fine, you want the truth? I didn't think you were right for him. You never tried to fit in.
I never tried to disappear, I said. That landed harder than shouting ever could.
Ethan turned to his mother. You invited someone else to my wedding. I protected you, she insisted. Like I always do. He shook his head slowly.
No, you controlled me.
For the first time since I'd met him, he didn't look like a man smoothing things over. He looked like someone seeing a pattern clearly. I closed my laptop. I'm done, I said. You're good with money. Lorraine stared at me. What does that mean? It means there will be no ceremony today. I said calmly, "At least not with me." A few gasps, no protests. I turned to Ethan. "I won't marry into a structure that replaces women when they become inconvenient." He swallowed.
Grace, please.
"We can fix this." I studied him. The man I'd loved, the man who'd looked away when looking mattered. "This wasn't broken," I said. "It was built this way." I stepped back from the altar area. People moved aside without being asked. The other woman, Hannah, found me near the doors. She looked steadier now. "I'm sorry," she said. "For my part in this." "You don't owe me anything," I replied. "You were used." So was I. She nodded, eyes clear. "Thank you for stopping it." Outside, the afternoon light felt neutral. Not cruel, not kind, just real. I walked to my car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed once. A message from Ethan. I didn't know how deep it went. "I'm sorry." I stared at it, then archived the conversation. Some apologies arrive after the damage is done. They can be sincere and still insufficient. In the weeks that followed, there were consequences. The venue refunded my portion quietly. The hospital administrator called to apologize for overriding my approved leave. The documentation made the conversation brief and professional. Lorraine stopped calling. Marla sent one long message explaining intentions. I didn't respond. Ethan moved out of the apartment we'd planned to share. He asked if we could talk again someday. I told him I hoped he learned how to listen before then. I kept my name. I kept my career. I kept my peace. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's a room full of people watching a story fall apart because it can no longer survive daylight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't win anything. I simply walked away with my dignity intact. And that turned out to be the only thing worth protecting all along. But my mind was very quiet, in a way it hadn't been before, because suddenly, being late didn't feel like the biggest problem. It felt like the reason they wanted me late at all. And whatever was waiting at that venue, it had been planned to happen without me there to stop it. I turned onto the highway, wedding dress still hanging untouched back at my apartment, and watched the miles tick down, knowing I wasn't driving toward a ceremony anymore. I was driving toward a scene, and I was going to walk into it without raising my voice. That surprised me later, when I thought back on it. The highway was open, and every instinct should have been telling me to get there as fast as possible. But urgency has a way of clouding judgment, and judgment was the one thing I refused to lose. I drove the exact speed limit and let my phone sit face down in the cup holder. By the time I reached my apartment building, it was 10:18 a.m. I didn't go inside right away. I stayed in the car and listened to the voicemail again, this time through my car speakers. "They're going to say you're not the bride, and they already have someone in your dress." The woman didn't sound hysterical.
She sounded resigned, like someone who had learned the cost of being ignored.
I replayed it a second time, then a third, listening for background noise, accents, anything that might anchor the voice to a memory. I couldn't place it yet, but something about her cadence felt familiar, like someone who'd been careful with words for a long time. I saved the voicemail again, this time exporting it with metadata intact. Then I went upstairs. My apartment was exactly how I'd left it. Quiet, clean, wedding dress still hanging in the closet like an idea I hadn't touched yet. I stood in front of it for a moment, not sentimental, just observant. If someone else was wearing a dress like mine, it wasn't an accident.